Number 15. Valerie Solanas, Season 7. We know one Season 7 character that's based on a real person, Valerie Solanas, because American Horror Story used the same name for the character. The real-life woman authored a manifesto called the Scum Manifesto, insisting that women should overthrow the government, eliminate the money system, institute complete automation, and eliminate all males. In the mid-60s, she moved to NYC, where she met the famous pop artist Andy Warhol. She gave him a script that she'd written and asked him to produce it, but was met with indifference from Warhol. Still, she appeared in his film, I, a Man, after which she started to self-publish her manifesto. The owner of Olympia Press said he'd publish her writings, but Solanas thought he and Warhol were trying to take her work. In 1968, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She went to Warhol's studio, called The Factory, and discharged 3 shots. Warhol didn't meet his end that day, so instead of getting life, Solanas was charged and diagnosed. Number 14. Dr. Oliver Thredson and Ed Gein, Season 2, Asylum. Season 2 of American Horror Story Asylum sees Dr. Oliver Thredson take a reporter, Lana Winters, being that Thredson skins his victims and uses their skins to furnish his apartment and create masks. It's not a big stretch to assume that the character is based on Ed Gein, the inspiration behind other film creepos like Leatherface or Buffalo Bill of Silence of the Lambs fame, and it's no wonder that Ed Gein inspires this show. He's one of the most fascinatingly morbid body snatchers in American lore. Gein haunted his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, where he scouted graveyards and took the bodies for their skin and bones. He shaped them into trophies. His story is pretty chilling already, but Gein's actions doesn't end there. He also confessed to taking the lives of 2 women, a hardware store owner, and a tavern owner in town. Among some of the other things found in Gein's home, once the police searched it, the day after the disappearance of Warden, the hardware store owner, were bedposts with skulls on them, wastebaskets, chair covers, and leggings made out of skin. Needless to say, Gein is the thing nightmares are made of. He was committed for life to psychiatric institutions. After being deemed legally insane, he lived a long life there, passing at age 77. Number 13. The Axeman of New Orleans, Season 3, Coven. In American Horror Story Coven, the fictional character, Axeman of New Orleans, makes his appearance in a role that's not so different from his non-fictional counterpart. The real Axeman was shouldering his axe around New Orleans during 1918 and 1919. It was then that this serial slayer took the lives of numerous people in their homes, often with their own axes. He would enter using a chisel on a backdoor panel, leaving the evidence right at the scene. He'd then go after the home's residents with his moniker's prop or with a straight razor. Why would someone go through all this trouble to take someone's life? What was his motive? Nothing was ever taken from the people's homes. Some thought that perhaps the mafia was involved, but this was just media speculation. No evidence supported this theory. Still, others thought that the deeds were gender motivated, as men were only knocked off if they got in the way. Otherwise, the man of the house was left alone. The strangest theory, however, was one suggested he ended only those who didn't appreciate jazz. It is corroborated by a letter the alleged perpetrator wrote to the Times-Picayune in March 1919, addressed to the esteemed mortal. The letter was recreated on American Horror Story, and the real thing is still available to the public today. Number 12. Grace Bertrand by Lizzie Borden, Season 2, Asylum. Another one with an axe liking. Grace Bertrand in Season 2 of American Horror Story is put away for knocking off her father and stepmother, just as the real parent pauper, Lizzie Borden, did. Lizzie Borden's claim to fame came in 1892. It was then that she was tried and acquitted for the axing of, you guessed it, her stepmother and father. She became infamous for being suspected in the case and for her crazy alibis. She was ostracized after her release from being locked up when she chose to stay in her hometown of Fall River, Massachusetts. Andrew and Abby Borden met their ends on the morning of August 4th, 1892. Abby went first at sometime between 9 and 10:30, while Andrew went soon after, sometime between 10:30 and 11:10. As the story goes, Abby went to make the bed that morning and was knocked with a hatchet. She was then dealt 17 direct blows to the back of the head. Andrew went for his morning walk and returned home around 10:30 when he couldn't get his key to work and knocked on the door. The maid, Bridget, alleged that she went to unlock it. She claims to have heard Lizzie laughing upstairs where her mother's body would have been. Lizzie, on the other hand, said that she'd never been upstairs and actually took her father's boots off for him so he could take his nap, after which she went to the barn to eat pears. In both narratives, Lizzie was the one who found the body. She called for Bridget to come downstairs as she was upstairs napping. A century after this event, people are still speculating about who the culprit could have been. Was it Lizzie? We'll likely never know, because the police botched the job, never checked Lizzie for stains, and apart from Lizzie's contradictory alibis, did not find any concrete evidence that the Borden daughter was responsible. Number 11. The Countess, by Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Season 5, Hotel. Remember Season 5's award-winning portrayal of the Countess by Lady Gaga? Well, believe it or not, that vampire-like beast was based on Hungarian countess, an equally crazy woman, Countess Elizabeth Bathory. She lived from 1560 to 1614. During her more than 50 years on Earth, she reigned as a noblewoman in the Kingdom of Hungary, but not too noble, as she was also pretty unladylike. According to records, she took the lives of her fair share of young women. In fact, she's landed in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the most prolific female mass slayer of all time. The Countess and 4 others took the lives of hundreds of women from 1585 to 1609. That means the Countess was a mere 25 years old when she started. At the Countess's trial, the victim count was as much as 650, which came from a servant girl's claim that she'd seen it in the Countess's journal. There was rock-solid evidence that Elizabeth was guilty for the charges against her. 300 witnesses and survivors, and counting, told of her dark, not-so-secret secret, and, similar to her TV counterpart, she was alleged to be a vampire-like beast who believed that this would keep her youthful. But as with everything, who you know matters. She didn't face trial because of her family name. Instead, she was locked up in a castle, yes, a castle, until she passed away 5 years later. Number 10. Richard Speck, Season 1. In Season 1, a storyline involving 2 nurses in the episode echoes the demise of nurses and what became known in the real-life events involving Richard Speck. On July 13th, 1966, Richard Speck made his way into a townhouse that served as a dormitory for student nurses. There, he did unspeakable things to 8 South Chicago Community Hospital nurses. The one female who lived to tell about the events had hidden under the bed when Speck was not in the room. She was able to describe him to authorities after attempting to take his own life not long after. Speck's tattoo triggered a resident at the hospital to call the authorities. The jury sentenced Speck to the electric chair, but by a fluke of luck, that was overturned. Still, Speck ended up passing behind bars at the age of 49. Not exactly a great loss. Number 9. Miranda and Bridget Jane, by Gwen Graham and Kathy Wood. Season 6. More nurses, only this time, they were the ones doing the dirty work. The dynamic duo, Miranda and Bridget Jane, in Season 6 of American Horror Story, are loosely based on Gwen Graham and Kathy Wood, 2 nurses who knocked off 5 female residents at a Michigan nursing home, where they served as caregivers, a loose definition of the term, if I've ever heard one. How in the world did two women who had the same desire to commit such a series of deeds meet? Wood and Graham became fast friends after Graham moved to Michigan from Texas and began working at the nursing home. Then they became lovers. Their love, however, would be their downfall. As part of what would later be described as a love bond, the two sent 5 of the women that were supposed to be in their care to an early passing. Wood, who later testified against Graham in exchange for a lighter sentence, claimed that her lovers smothered these people in their beds as a way to relieve her tension. Graham was described by Wood as being the dominant partner in their coupling. Wood claimed that Graham took souvenirs from the people, but none of these alleged souvenirs were ever found. Sadly, the lovers broke up, but not so sadly, the law caught up with them in the end. Graham was sentenced to life, while Wood is eligible for release in 2021. Number 8, Violet and Daisy Hilton by Dalton Bet, Season 4, Freak Show. Freak Show wasn't short on so-called freaks, including sadistic clowns and bearded ladies, but 2 of these freaks were based on real sideshow acts. Violet and Daisy Hilton, the conjoined twins, came into this world in early 20th century England. They were known from an early age as the United Twins. Sadly, they actually did become part of a freak show. At the age of 3, they were wheeled around Britain as a sideshow act. By the age of 8, they went international, traveling to the United States to be gawked at. Their mother passed, after which they were taken on by new management, who would keep them confined if they didn't follow orders. In the 20s and 30s, they became part of vaudeville and burlesque circuits and appeared in the films Chained for Life and Freaks. Although the girls had been called freaks all their lives, I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate this term. Number 7, Edward Mordrake for The Man with Two Faces, Season 4, Freak Show. A two-faced man in the Halloween episode of Season 4 will have you questioning reality, but this story is as real can be. Edward Mordrake was a man born with 2 faces, his normal one and a second in the back of his head. Although the real-life Mordrake didn't take anyone's life but his own, unlike his freak show image. According to reports, his other half tried to convince him to do dark things, as recorded in the Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine. The ugly twin, occupying only a small portion of the posterior part of the skull, yet exhibiting every sign of intelligence, of a malignant sort however, would be seen to smile and sneer while Mordrake was weeping, likely due to the constant battle with his other half. Mordrake took his life at the age of 23. Number 6, Twisty the Clown by John Wayne Gacy, Seasons 4 and 5. John Wayne Gacy is so popular that the AHS character made in his image appeared in not 1, but 2 seasons of the series as Twisty the Clown in Freak Show. His disfigured entertainer takes people and ends their lives. Twisty also shows up for dinner in Hotel alongside Dahmer and other notorious villains. The real clown, John Wayne Gacy, made everyone and their dog afraid of the bright-haired, grotesque childhood figures if they weren't already before. Gacy did unspeakable things to 33 teenage boys and men from 1972 to 1978. This number is the minimum. It may be higher. Gacy would convince these people to come to his Norwood Park ranch house, either by deception or force. Most of them were hidden in his home's crawl space, while others were thrown into the river or hidden somewhere on his grounds. He became known by his moniker because he dressed as Pogo the Clown for children's parties and parades for charity. Number 5, Madame Delphine LaLaurie by Madame Delphine McCarty, Season 3, Coven. Kathy Bates made Madame Delphine LaLaurie jump off the screen. Marie Delphine McCarty, also called Madame Blanc and Madame LaLaurie, was a socialite and New Orleans Creole until, that is, it came out that she was keeping people in her attic to meet their end. The greatest surprise came after a fire in her home that brought rescuers to the discovery of 7 people in her attic. The fire was set by the cook, who was trying to end her life. To avoid punishment, she was chained to the stove when rescuers arrived. A mob of angry citizens sacked the house after LaLaurie's antics were exposed to the world, but Madame LaLaurie managed to flee with her family to France. No justice served here. Number 4. Eileen Wuornos, Season 5, Hotel. The aforementioned Halloween episode that gathered together some of America's most notorious slayers hosted yet another of their favorites, Eileen Wuornos. Comparatively, female slayers are few and far between, and Wuornos is one of the few. She was guilty of taking 7 men's lives at point-blank range in Florida from 1989 to 1990. Although she claimed self-defense, she was found guilty and met her end in October of 2002. Number 3. Tate Langdon by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, Season 1. In the 6th episode of the first season, Tate Langdon, a troubled boy, goes on a rampage at his school, Westfield High, taking the lives of 15 students in the process. People have noted how similar this case was to Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, known for the events that unfolded at the high school in Columbine, Colorado. Number 2. Elizabeth Short by The Black Dahlia, Season 1. American Horror Story Season 1 served up plenty real people-based characters and the events surrounding them. One of these characters, Elizabeth Short, pulls from the story of a real person who we know now as the Black Dahlia. The Black Dahlia was a would-be American actress who was prowling the streets of Los Angeles in the 40s, trying to become famous, but her road to fame met an abrupt end in 1947. The scene was grisly. She had been chopped in half and drained. Her face as well had been given a Glasgow smile. She had also been posed, her legs spread and her elbows bent, her hands over her head. A cement bag sat not far away with the watered down red liquid of the dahlia inside. During that area, the people involved in events like this were often given nicknames by the media. For Elizabeth Short, they went with the Black Dahlia, probably a play on the Blue Dahlia, a film noir mystery that had been released the previous year. Short was found in Wal-Mart Park, and though the list of potential suspects is long, the case remains unsolved. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. Also, I recently created a subreddit where you can submit videos and stories for future lists. It's r/chillsnarrator and the link is in the description below. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way you'll be notified of the new videos we upload every Tuesday and Saturday. If English isn't the only language you speak and you're interested in getting a shout out, click more, then add translations. By translating the video, not only will more people be able to watch it, but a link to your channel will be added in the description. Number 1. Jeffrey Dahmer, Season 5, Hotel. In Season 5, several notorious slayers share dinner, one of these being Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer went after 17 boys and men between 1978 to 1991. He took their lives. In his later years, even those acts weren't enough for him. When his palate wasn't satisfied, he then took things to much darker levels. Dahmer was just 18 when he first took the life of a stranger. He just graduated high school when he picked up a hitchhiker named Hicks and brought him home to share a drink. When Hicks wanted to leave, Dahmer went after his new friend with a 10-pound dumbbell. His deviant behavior continued into the US Army after he'd been enlisted and trained as a medical specialist. He then lived with his grandmother, which is when he began actively seeking out people. In his own words, he had trained himself to view people as objects of pleasure instead of as people. He took the lives of many in his grandmother's home, and when he moved to his own place in 1990, when he was finally caught, Dahmer was convicted to 16 terms of life for the 16 lives he had taken. Definitely one of the most stomach-churning cases on this list. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!